There is a civilization that lasted for 3,000 years. 3,000 years of pharaohs and pyramids, of gods and golden thrones and painted tombs, hidden deep beneath the desert sand. A civilization so ancient that when Julius Caesar visited Egypt, the pyramids of Giza were already 2,000 years old. To Caesar, the pyramids were as distant in time as Caesar himself is to us today. A civilization that built structures so perfectly aligned with the stars that modern engineers still cannot fully explain how they were constructed without machinery, without computers, without any of the tools we consider essential. Tonight, we tell the entire stories of ancient Egypt, from the very first farmers who settled along the banks of the Nile, all the way to Cleopatra, the last pharaoh, as Rome absorbed everything Egypt had built across 30 centuries. Find a comfortable position, let your breathing slow, and let Egypt come to you. To understand Egypt, you must first understand the Nile. The Nile is the longest river in the world, stretching over 6,000 kilometers from Central Africa northward to the Mediterranean Sea. In Egypt, it flows through a landscape that is almost entirely desert. But along the banks of the Nile, the land is completely different. Every year without fail, the Nile floods. From June to September, the river rises and covers the surrounding fields with rich, dark silt. When the waters recede, they leave behind some of the most fertile soil on earth. The ancient Egyptians called this the Black Land. The desert they called Red Land. Small farming communities appeared along the river around 5,000 BC. Gradually, they grew larger and more powerful. By 3,500 BC, two distinct kingdoms had emerged. In the north was Lower Egypt, in the south was Upper Egypt. For centuries, they coexisted, sometimes trading, sometimes fighting. And then around 3,100 BC, a king from the south conquered the north and unified them into a single state. Ancient Egypt had begun. His name, according to tradition, was Narmer. Around 3,100 BC, a king from Upper Egypt conquered Lower Egypt and unified the two kingdoms into a single state. This unification was the founding act of ancient Egypt. The man who achieved it became the first pharaoh. He wore a double crown, combining the red and white crowns of the two kingdoms. We know about Narmer primarily through a remarkable object discovered in 1898, the Narmer palette, a flat piece of gray-green stone about 60 centimeters tall, carved on both sides with scenes of a king defeating his enemies. It is the oldest historical record in Egyptian history. The pharaoh was not merely a king, he was a god, the earthly embodiment of Horus, the falcon-headed sky god. When he died, he became Osiris, ruler of the afterlife. The cycle of divine kingship continued unbroken through dynasty after dynasty for 3,000 years. Everything depended on the pharaoh. The temples were his houses for the gods. The pyramids were his tombs. The armies were his armies. The farmers worked his land. In return, the pharaoh provided order, security, and justice. It was an arrangement that lasted, with variations and interruptions, for 3,000 years. No other political system in human history has endured so long. The pyramid was not invented fully formed. It evolved through experimentation. The earliest royal tombs were flat rectangular structures called mastabas. Around 2650 BC, the architect Imhotep designed something entirely new. He stacked 6 mastabas of a decreasing size on top of each other. creating a stepped structure 60 meters high. It was the world's first large stone building, and it still stands today. Over the next century, architects refined the design. Then came Giza. The Great Pyramid of Khufu contains 2.3 million stone blocks, averaging 2.5 tons each. The heaviest weigh 80 tons. Its 4 sides are aligned to the compass points with an accuracy of less than 1/10 of 1 degree. For 4,000 years, it was the tallest structure on Earth. It was built not by slaves, but by paid, skilled workers who were fed, housed, and respected by the state. Their tombs, found near the pyramid, prove this. The pyramids were not simply tombs, they were cosmic machines designed to launch the pharaoh's soul into the afterlife. Their shafts aimed precisely at the stars, the Egyptians associated with their gods. Of all the rulers of ancient Egypt, few are more remarkable than Hatshepsut. She was a woman who became pharaoh at a time when pharaohs were expected to be men, and she ruled for approximately 20 years with extraordinary skill and confidence. Around 1473 BC, she declared herself pharaoh. She had herself depicted in the traditional royal regalia, the double crown, the false beard worn by pharaohs as a symbol of divine authority. She adopted the visual language of kingship and wielded its power completely. Her reign was prosperous and peaceful. She sent a famous trading expedition to the land of Punt, returning with living incense trees and exotic animals. She built one of the most beautiful temples in Egypt, the mortuary temple at Deir el-Bahri, its elegant colonnaded terraces rising against the cliffs of the Theban hills. After her death, her stepson Thutmose III systematically attempted to erase her memory. Her images were defaced, her name chiseled out of inscriptions, her statues buried or destroyed. For thousands of years, she was forgotten. It was only in the 19th and 20th centuries that her extraordinary achievement was recognized. She stands today as one of the most successful pharaohs in Egyptian history, man or woman. Around 1353 BC, a pharaoh named Akhenaten did something no Egyptian ruler had ever done. He abolished the entire traditional Egyptian religion and replaced it with the worship of a single god, the Aten, the physical disk of the sun. He closed all other temples, redirected their wealth, and built a brand new city in the desert called Akhetaten, where he moved the entire royal court. The art of this period is unlike anything before or after in Egyptian history. Instead of the rigid, formal style of traditional Egyptian art, Akhenaten is shown with an elongated face, soft body, and relaxed posture. His wife Nefertiti plays with their daughters. The royal family basks together in the sun's rays. After Akhenaten's death, the reaction was total. Temples reopened. His city was abandoned. His name was erased from every monument. He was declared a heretic and forgotten for 3,000 years. His young successor changed his own name from Tutankhaten to Tutankhamun as part of restoring the old religion, and became accidentally the most famous pharaoh in history. On the 4th of November 1922, the British archaeologist Howard Carter found a step cut into the bedrock of the Valley of the King's Floor. He cleared the rubble, found another step, and another. He excavated carefully until he revealed a sealed stone doorway. He sent a telegram to his patron, Lord Carnarvon, in England. Carnarvon came to Egypt immediately. On the 26th of November, 1922, Carter made a small hole in the upper left corner of the sealed doorway and held a candle to the opening. As his eyes adjusted to the darkness, shapes began to emerge. Strange animals, statues, gold, everywhere the gleam of gold. Carnarvon asked impatiently, "Can you see anything?" Carter replied with words that became perhaps the most famous in the history of archaeology. "Yes, wonderful things. The tomb contained over 5,000 objects, 3 nested coffins, the innermost of solid gold, containing the mummified body of the young king, his face covered by the golden death mask that has become one of the most recognizable images in the world." The discovery made headlines around the globe and ignited a worldwide fascination with ancient Egypt that has never fully subsided. Rameses II ruled Egypt for 66 years, from 1279 to 1213 BC, living to approximately 90 years of age. He was larger than life in every sense. At the Battle of Kadesh, around 1274 BC, he led his army against the Hittites and narrowly avoided capture, fighting his way out with personal courage. The battle ended in stalemate, but both sides claimed victory. What followed was remarkable. The world's first recorded peace treaty. A copy hangs in the United Nations headquarters in New York today. Rameses built more monuments than any other pharaoh. His temple at Abu Simbel, carved into sandstone cliffs in Nubia, is fronted by 4 enormous statues of himself, each over 20 meters tall. He had over 90 children. He outlived many of them. His mummy survives in the Egyptian Museum in Cairo. Scientists found that his white hair had been dyed red. Even in death, he wanted to be remembered as the warrior he had once been. After his death, Egypt began a long, slow decline. By 525 BC, Persia had conquered it. By 332 BC, Alexander the Great arrived and Egypt surrendered without a fight, welcoming him as a liberator from Persian rule. Cleopatra VII was the last ruler of the Ptolemaic dynasty and the last independent pharaoh of ancient Egypt. She was extraordinarily intelligent, politically gifted, and utterly determined to preserve her kingdom's independence. When Julius Caesar arrived in Alexandria in 48 BC, she had herself smuggled into the royal palace, rolled in a carpet to avoid her brother's guards. She emerged in Caesar's presence and immediately began to negotiate. When Caesar was assassinated in 44 BC, she found a new protector in Mark Antony. Together they controlled the Eastern Mediterranean. Their relationship became one of the most famous in history. The conflict between Antony and Octavian ended at the Battle of Actium in 31 BC. Antony killed himself. Cleopatra, unwilling to be paraded through Rome in Octavian's triumph, chose her own death over captivity. She arranged for a basket of figs to be brought to her. Hidden among the figs was an asp, an Egyptian cobra, sacred to the sun god Ra, the symbol of divine royalty that decorated the foreheads of pharaohs. She died on the 12th of August, 30 BC, 39 years old, the last pharaoh of Egypt. With her death, 3,000 years of Egyptian civilization came to an end. The pyramids still stand. The names are still carved in stone. 3,000 years after the last pharaoh died, we are still speaking their names. We still look at their buildings with astonishment. We still walk through their tombs and feel something we cannot quite name, some recognition across an impossible gulf of time. They wanted to be remembered, and they are. If this journey through ancient Egypt helped you relax tonight, subscribe for a new history every single week. Next, the entire story of ancient Greece awaits you. Good night. Alexander the Great was 24 when he took Egypt in 332 BC. The Egyptians welcomed him as a liberator. He visited the oracle of Amun deep in the western desert, where priests declared him the son of Amun, effectively a pharaoh. He founded Alexandria on the Mediterranean coast, which became one of the greatest cities in the ancient world, home to its famous library and the towering lighthouse, one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world. Alexander left for Persia and never returned. He died in Babylon at 32. His general Ptolemy founded a dynasty that ruled Egypt for nearly 300 years. The Ptolemaic pharaohs were Greek by blood, but Egyptian in ceremony. They built temples in the Egyptian style and presented themselves as traditional pharaohs. Cleopatra was the first of her dynasty to learn the Egyptian language. She also spoke 8 other languages. She was brilliant, politically gifted, and utterly determined to preserve her kingdom. When Rome's power closed in around her, she allied first with Caesar, then with Antony. When that final alliance collapsed at the Battle of Actium in 31 BC, everything ended. Antony killed himself. Cleopatra followed. Egypt became a Roman province. 3,000 years of pharaonic civilization was over.